April 2nd meeting of City Council to order. So roll call.
Mayor Truman.
Here.
Councilmember Colbert.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory. Here. Councilmember Kerstetter.
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Stamp.
Here. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance and the invocation, please. Do the invocation first. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Our kind Heavenly Father, we pray that you will bless us this night as we gather, that we will be able to discuss these things in a neighborly manner, that we will understand thy love and care for each of us as our children. We pray for the faith to keep thy commandments and the strength to do what is right at all times. We pray for this council, that they will be guided by thy hand, and they will make the decisions that will better the lives of those in this community. We're so grateful for all that thou hast blessed us with. We pray that thou will continue to bless us as we show our faithfulness to thee. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got it. Sweet. Okay, we'll move for the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. I have a motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to the minutes of March 16th.
Motion to approve the minutes of the March 19th, 2024 regular council meeting as presented.
Second.
It's 16th on the screen and 19th in our notes. Which one is it?
Put it in the
19th.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, presentations. We have Jacob Culver. Oh, we have Rodney first.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So he's already been in the newsletter. Jacob Culver, our new utilities manager, started with us January 31st. He comes to us from the city of Wichita, and we were finally able to tie him down long enough to come and meet you. So I'm going to turn it over to Jake and introduce himself and answer a few questions. Jacob?
I'm Jake. Please call me Jake instead of Jacob. My parents call me Jacob, but I hope to come here occasionally to ask you for money and otherwise not have you know anything about the water or sewer department. I like the attitude.
So if we see you, we're in trouble. Is that what you're saying?
Or he's
If you
asking.
see me, you're in good hands.
Yeah.
I love taking care of people. I love figuring things out, solving problems, and coming to solutions and working with other people. We got a great group of guys over there. You probably are unaware of the guys that are just grinding away over there every day, making sure that things are passing and keeping us in compliance and making sure that things are taken care of and everybody's stuff is safe. Trying to interact with customers and citizens in ways that they may not be their finest moment when they got their water shut off, but they're treating them with grace and the dignity they deserve. But I love doing something that matters. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer. All right.
If we have any questions, welcome aboard. McCrown and Gordon Recreation Center update.
Oh, good evening, Mayor, council members. Jairus and Bo are passing out, or I guess just Jairus is passing out some of the updates. I think everybody's been getting these in their email, but Jairus and Bo put these together on a weekly basis just to try and keep everyone here and the general public informed about what all is going on the project. So it has been about 90 days since we were in front of the council last. Our last one was right before the Christmas break. So quarterly update. We have been posting all of these updates on the website that we've dedicated to this project. I don't know if anybody has scanned that QR code that's on the fence that is kind of the landing page where all this stuff lives. It also has a link to the live construction camera and a couple other neat features there. But if you haven't, take your phone and do that. It's pretty cool. We also did host the Valley Center Chamber here just last week. And so I see a few familiar faces from that event. We were fortunate enough to have E&J's provide the pulled pork. So if you guys haven't had that, I highly recommend it. It's really good stuff. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jairus. He's the project superintendent. He's the guy on site every day with Muddy Boots, and Bo Berry, project manager. They're going to provide just kind of a quick update of what's been going on and what we have to look forward to before our next in-person update to the council. So thank you, guys.
Perfect. Well, first off, thanks for having us and including us. Had a really decent stretch of weather, which has afforded us the opportunity to make some great strides. You see most of the structure is up and complete. The roof over top of the gymnasium and natatorium is complete and dry. A huge milestone. Overhead electrical rough-in has started in the gymnasium and progressing nicely. Locker room CMU masonry actually started yesterday, so that's a huge milestone as well. Metal wall panels and ceiling panels have started in the natatorium. The ceiling panels are roughly, as of today, 2/3 complete, with the wall panels being approximately, let's say, 1/8 complete. And all that's to get prepared for the pool to start being excavated, which we'll touch on here shortly. I've also made some strides in site development. We'll have some more site paving going in starting next week. And then the splash pad is well underway as well. Rough grade has been completed by Fremar, the local earthwork trade partner. And then underground piping has started with concrete chasing its tail. So here in the next couple of weeks, we'll see some concrete going in. And then another local trade partner, Versus Sport, has installed the foundations and part of the structure for the shade structure at the splash pad as well. So a lot has gone on the last, let's say 90 days. Yeah, last 90 days since we last presented to you. You can see nice aerial there on the screen. So really, really happy with the weather we've had and really appreciate everyone's anti-rain dances. So I'll give you a kind of a snapshot of it.
Yeah, there's a question.
Yeah.
I have a question for clarification. Splash pad is at Lions Park.
I apologize. Yes, sir. That's at Lion Park. Yep.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as Jairus said, the weather has been awesome as of February and really for the first part of this. That's kind of the next 90 days. I always want to point that out because that's our biggest determinant on progress until we get dried in and can continue to progress on the inside. So we've been very fortunate up to this point. So actually, if you look at that picture, on the far side is where we will be digging the pool. So that's a big milestone that we'll be starting here. So Jairus touched on, we're doing the liner panels on the inside. That's to allow us to be able to get inside, have some of that work done, and then start digging out in that area right there. So we're starting layout, I believe it's next week. Yeah. So that we'll get in there. We'll start digging all that stuff out. And then as far as on this site, we also have on the other side the fitness roof. So really our main focus and our critical path is that pool area. And we're seeing the rest of the building really progress along with that being our main area in the pool. So in that fitness area, we see that kind of you're going to see that going up fairly quickly with the pool being our pinch point. So with that, you'll start to see in that area some of the in-wall rough-in, things like that, overhead rough-in, and then you'll really start to see some of the framing come along. The other thing, splash pad at Lions Park, we're on track for that one to open Memorial Day. That was a very, very big thing that Brent talked to us about, making sure that that was open. So we're on path to do that and doing everything we can to make sure that that happens. So I'm very happy with our progress, and we've been able to progress along really well, even though it was a pretty tough winter with some of the weather and some of our delays. So we've actually brought that back, and we don't see that impacting the project up to this point. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions?
If you guys have any questions, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
So you're on schedule. Okay, that's great.
We have, so I want to give credit where credit is due, and these two have worked their tails off. And Brent knows because he said in a lot of these meetings, but to date, we've lost 39 working days. So 5 days in a working week. So we've lost almost 8 weeks of time. Resequenced some things in the schedule. We're doing some things maybe a little bit later than we had originally anticipated in a work sequence. But we're still maintaining that open facility by the beginning of the year. So we've been able to do that without moving the final date of the project essentially 2 months. So these two have worked their tails off, and they deserve the credit on that. So that was a really long-winded answer to say yes. So
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the update.
Thank you for the
It does look
opportunity.
nice up there.
have a good evening.
Okay, PEC Master Water Plan update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Joining us tonight with our PC Wichita office is Trevor Kaufman and Lanston Yu. Trevor is a team lead for our civil municipal group in Wichita, which I'm a part of, and Lanston's part of our water wastewater group. They're going to give you a brief update or presentation on the water master plan that PEC does.
All right, good evening, everybody. Gage introduced, I'm Trevor Kaufman. I'm just kind of engineer of record for this project. So I'm actually going to kind of give an overall introduction to this. I'm going to let Lanston do a lot of the presentation, but kind of general water master plan and what that is. That's really taking a look at the existing water distribution system and trying to identify any issues and providing recommendations on how to take care of those. And with that, we look at existing conditions, and we also look at 20 years down the road and the type of development and increase of water demands that are anticipated for the system. So that's really a quick overview of the master plan and what it is. Part of, I think, the reason that this came up for you guys was some complaints in the system about low pressures. I think that was one thing that was happening in general, and in general, it just had been a while since this had really been looked at. Also, in relation to the new water treatment plant, it was a good time to kind of get this done and get a working hydraulic model of the system so that we have that as kind of a working tool for this evaluation and moving forward. So I'm going to let Lanston walk through it. The handouts have the full report. Yes.
They got that in it.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so it's a very big report. So when we go through it tonight, we're going to try to be pretty high level, really hit the high points, but I mean, feel free to ask questions as we go. Feel free even after the fact to get questions for Brent and Gage that we can answer as well. So with that, I'll let Lanston kind of walk you guys through it.
Yeah, thanks Trevor for that great introduction, and thanks to the council for allowing me to present tonight.
So we're going to start off here with a map of the city's existing water distribution system. So there are a few key things to note here. First one being the city's main water supply, and that comes from the primary Wichita Connection booster pump station, which is all the way on the south end of that map there. And at that booster pump station, there are 2 pumps, and they pump water from Wichita system into Valley Center system. The city also has a secondary connection just east of that primary connection. However, that connection's not usually open on a day-to-day basis. It's mainly open as needed and to get water. In terms of water storage, the primary source of storage that the city has is a 750,000 gallon water tower in the south end of town. And then those red areas that you see there on the map are projected growth areas, which are areas that we at PEC and city staff have determined to be areas that have the most potential for future development. Here's a map of the city's pipe materials in the water system. You can see that there are some cast iron lines in the inner parts of the city, but for the most part, the city has PVC pipes. Here's a map of the city's pipe sizes in their water distribution system. So mainly 6-inch and 8-inch lines. The transmission lines along some of the major roads are 12-inch. The primary transmission line from the Wichita connection point into Valley Center system is a 16-inch line. And then your biggest water line is an 18-inch line into outside. So going on to a discussion of the city's historical water demands. So we were able to gather data from the city, historical just drinking water reports that allowed us to look at the total annual usage, average day demand, and maximum day demand from 2017 to 2022. So just to kind of go one by one, the total annual usage, so that's the total amount of water that the city uses in a given year, so all 6 of those years. The average day demand is the city's average water usage per day in a given year. And then the maximum day demand is the day that represents the city's highest water usage in a given year. And then there's also a footnote there on the bottom, another type of demand. It's called peak hour demand. That's the hour that represents the city's highest water usage in a day. It's typically, rule of thumb, 3 times your average day demand. So you can see for all these demands, they're all trending upwards. They're all correlated with one another, but you can see that since 2017. And so when we develop our water model, the demands that we put in that model is going to be the average that you see in the bottom there. So the average demand from 2017 to 2022. Get a better idea of how much water the city uses in recent years. So here's a map of the city's top water users. The city's #1 top water user is Rural Water District #2. That's the city's wholesale customer. To get an idea of how much water they use 22% of the city's total demand. The city's second top water user is National Plastics, and they only use 2% of the city's total demand. So you can see that Rural Water District 2 is by far the most significant top water user. So at this point, we were able to develop a water model for the city based on the city's GIS, and we were able to calibrate that. So during the calibration, we found a few closed valves in the city's system, particularly on the east side of the city. And those closed valves contributed to lower pressures. So we notified the city. The city has opened them since, and they have seen improved pressures since then. So here is kind of where we start the analysis part of our water modeling. So these
pressure contours are they represent system pressures, assuming maximum day demands in the city. So if you look at those lines, the majority of the system pressures are around 60 psi, so very good. But you can see there on the east part of the city, where you kind of see those red lines, that's when pressures in the city start to drop to about 40 psi. And that's due to an elevated ground, or a high ground elevation rise. But it's important to note, though, that the state requires that all system pressures in the water distribution system just have to be above 20 psi. So even the fact that you're at 40 psi in the east part of the city, you're still meeting state regulations. So nothing to worry about on that. So here is a map of existing available fire flow. So what is that? So available fire flow is the amount of water available for fire protection while still maintaining a minimum pressure of 20 psi anywhere in the system. So if you look at the map overall, it's very good everywhere for fire flows. You can improve some of the areas with pipe looping. And so what I mean by that is anytime you have a dead end line where you only have water flowing in one direction, connecting that dead end line with another line, having water being able to come from two directions, that's what I mean by pipe looping. So there are a few areas, you'll see it in future figures. We noted some here, like there's a dead end line there ending at 89th Street. Kind of see it's the hydrants, the blue dots that kind of go up and kind of stop. That's the dead end line I'm talking about. So just looping that. There is a dead end line near the intermediate school, and being able to tie that into the line of Meridian. And then there's that cul-de-sac there on the east side. You can kind of see those red dots. That means low available fire flow. That wasn't part of our improvements, but the city indicated that they plan to loop that. Kind of the last part of the analysis here is water age. So water age is how long that water has been sitting in the system. So when you have old water that hasn't been used up in the system, that can lead to low chlorine residuals, which is your source of disinfection. And so when you have low chlorine residuals, common practice is to flush out your system using with your hydrants, and that's done to help increase those chlorine residuals back to an acceptable level. Though, if you look at the figure, our model indicates that the city has high water age, and we believe that's due to water not being fully consumed when the towers are being drained. So that old water that's not being used sits in the pipes, and then when the tower's filling back up again, that old water comes back up into the tower. So that's what our model indicates, but after the conversation with the city, it doesn't sound like there's any low chlorine residual issues. So we'd recommend just continuing how the city operates their pumps and tower cycling operations. Now we're kind of getting into projections. So these are projected water demand. So projected how much water you're going to use, projected out over the next 20 years in 5-year increments. So again, there's that average day, max day, peak hour demand, 2023 all the way to 2043. And we basically projected that out with a percent annual growth there, 1.6%. That growth rate was based on the Wichita, Sedgwick County metropolitan area planning department. And after conversation with the city, they agreed that that's the growth rate we should use for Valley Center. And so here, more kind of analysis figures. So these are the maximum day pressures, assuming the 20-year projected demands. Not really much to say here. It's pretty similar to what the maximum day pressures are currently. And the same thing kind of goes for the available fire flows. Not too much changes here. So next, we took a look at the city's water storage from a total system perspective. So you can see there is again the average day demand, your maximum day demands, and we're looking at when you're trying to calculate the total storage that the city needs. We're looking at three different things: equalization volume, emergency volume, and fire protection volume. So to start, equalization volume, that's simply just the volume of water required to meet the difference between your max day demands and your peak hour demands. The reason you want to do that is because you want your pumps to be able to handle your maximum day demands, but not necessarily your peak hour demands. Because if you let your pumps run during peak hours, then your pumps are running at a higher capacity just for those 2 hours. And if it does that every single day, then it's pumping at a higher capacity than it's typically doing. The pumps are going to wear out faster. So you want to have a certain volume in your water tower dedicated for just those peak demands. That's what I mean by equalization volume. Next is your emergency volume. So that's the volume of water that's required to maintain your water supply for a certain amount of time due to an emergency. So that emergency can be a water main break. It can be power failure at a facility like a pump station. It can be a natural disaster, right? So that's what I mean by emergency volume. And so we calculated the volume of water required to maintain your water supply for 8 hours. And that's not set in stone. It can be 12 hours, 16 hours, whatever the city feels comfortable with. But for our analysis, we did 8 hours. And lastly, fire protection volume. That's the volume of water required to meet the desired fire demand flow in the system. And that's dependent on two things: type of fire and duration of the fire. So since you guys have National Plastics, we consider that, obviously that's an industrial user, so we consider it an industrial fire occurring for 3 hours, which is just a typical location. That's what those volumes are. So typically what you do is you take all three of these volumes, you'd add them together, and that would be the total water storage that the city needs. But we have seen that that is typically over conservative. That will typically lead to high water age, which is obviously leads to low chlorine residuals. So it's not necessarily that feasible to consider. So a more reasonable thing to do is to take two sums. And so you can see that as the last two columns, your sum of your equalization and your emergency volume, and also the sum of your equalization and your fire protection volume. And then you look at those two sums, and then you take your higher sum. So by doing that, you're able to get a more conservative estimate for what your storage needs to be. And this is just more reasonable. So in this case, if you look at 20-year projections, so 2043, sum of equalization emergency volume, 0.81 million gallons, that's how much volume you would theoretically need. All right, so here's the map of our proposed improvements for the water system. So I'll start out with those dashed lines there that you see on the west side of that line that I have drawn. Those are the proposed loopings that I talked about to help improve available fire flow in those areas. So that's very simple. So now it starts to get a little more complicated. So we are also proposing an east pressure zone. So a city should consider having different pressure zones when you have different parts of the city at different elevations, significantly different elevations. So in the case of Valley Center, that happens because you have a significant elevation rise occurring when you get to that eastern portion of the city. That is why we are proposing that everything east of that line I have drawn be an east pressure zone. So what does that mean besides just a line that I drew on the map? So that means that you're going to have a new booster pump station. So that's kind of on the south side of that, of the line that I have drawn there. That's where you'd have your proposed booster pump station. That proposed booster pump station would help improve pressures in the proposed east pressure zone. And then you also have a water tower, which is the center part of that line that I have drawn. Proposed water tower specifically for that east pressure zone. That would also help improve pressures in that area and help maintain adequate storage. But I did want to note that these proposed improvements are not critical. This is simply to help improve pressures in that area. Because like I said, we're seeing about 40 PSI, which is still over that 20 PSI regulation limit. But if the city wants to improve wants to improve pressures in that area, then these are our proposed improvements to do so. So here, this is basically just our analysis on how we sized that new water tower in the proposed east pressure zone. So I didn't mention it, but we're proposing a 200,000 gallon water tower. And so basically I just went through that same analysis I did for the total system for the east pressure zone. And so, like I mentioned, you look at the two sums on the two columns on the right, sum of equalization emergency and equal fire protection. And then you look at 2043. So it says, so you look at 0.18 million gallons, 0.27 million gallons. So the reason why in this case we're actually picking the lower sum is because the city would have the ability to provide fire flow from the rest of the system west of the east pressure zone in the event of the fire. So because of that, fire protection volume doesn't become as significant as your emergency volume. So that is why we picked the 200,000 gallon water tower to do that. And then so going back to total system storage, you have your 750,000 gallon water tower that you already have, the 200,000 gallon water tower that we're proposing, and that would give you 950,000 gallons of total storage, which is adequate based on this. So now we're looking at the analysis here. The title just keeps getting longer. Pressures, system pressures, 20 years from now, assuming maximum day demands with our improvements, so with our tower, with our booster pump station, with our east pressure zone. So with these improvements, we're seeing that system pressures in that proposed east pressure zone, the eastern portion of the city, increased to about 60 PSI minimum. But that was derived based on the tower, the proposed tower having the same height as the existing tower. Obviously, as you get a taller tower, you're going to get better pressures. So just keep that in mind. That's how we did our analysis. Available fire flow here, 20 years down the road with improvements. We see that there are improvements with available fire flow in those localized areas with the looping that I mentioned earlier. And then you even see that in that cul-de-sac on the east part of the city, it's no longer red, it's now orange or yellow, whatever it is. And that's mainly due to the fact that we have our tower and our booster pump station help increase that available fire flow. Last figure here, water age 20 years down the road with our improvements. So a new tower actually contributes to lower chlorine residuals. That's just a fact when you are putting in a new tower. So a chlorine injection system may be required just from that fact that we're putting in a new tower. It also may be beneficial for the city to install a mixer in their existing tower, and that's just to help sustain more adequate water age in the system. And now this is our last slide here, estimated project costs. So these are all the different improvements that I talked about during this presentation. Water line loops, the water tower, the booster pump station, the stuff below the booster pump station, the pressure reducing valve bolts, electrical and skidding connections. Those are mainly just to help sustain the pressure zone. And then the optional mixing system for the existing tower, and then the optional chlorine injection system. So that comes out to total project cost of 4.3 to 4.4. FYI.
Dan, you have a question?
I'll let Dale.
Dale was first.
Oh, I was gonna let Mr. Anderson go first.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you go back to your slide where you had your boundary, red boundary?
Yeah.
All right, so on that map, we have, well, I assume in your projections that you have more, you know that there's a lot of more housing developments going in on both sides of your map. Okay.
Yes.
Now, what I don't understand with the hydrology and all the piping is actually where your cursor was on the other side, right there is going to be a big development, and then we're going to have another one up there by the high school. How is that going to affect our pressures up there?
Yeah, so all of those demands, those were in the growth areas. Actually, those demands were included in that 20-year projection. So the results that we're seeing from the 20-year projection and those pressures account for that increase in demand and growth. So we didn't identify that those had a significant effect on pressures on potentially what would be the best side to the lower pressure.
Okay, because there's also the two on the east side that are also newer housing developments that would probably affect it more. Yeah. Oh, is that what that red area is? Okay.
Yeah.
I got a few questions for you. The proposed water tower and boost station, the water tower was at 85th and Seneca, and the boost station's at 77th and Seneca. Are those, do those have to be installed at the same time? Do those work together, or you need both of them at the same time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how you technically can do pressure zones without towers. That means your pumps have to pump the instantaneous all the time.
Okay.
And that's usually not the preferred method. As Lansing kind of talked about the benefits the tower adds storage, without that, you're kind of lacking that. Wichita operates like that. They have very few towers at all. What that kind of causes them to do is their system is very reactive. So when they have breaks and things like that, their system reacts much quicker, usually for the worse, to those scenarios. Towers just really add kind of a stable, they really stabilize the system.
According to projections, do we have a time frame of when those would need to be installed to maintain our pressures?
So
I know it's all fluid. Well, no pun intended. It's pretty fluid with the number of houses we add. Do you guys have a projection though, based on our growth, when we would need to?
Yeah, I'll see if Lansing remembers the number, but I do know even without the East Zone improvements, the 20-year projections, we're still meeting the KDHE requirements. Do you recall what the pressures dropped to? Maybe mid-30s? Yeah, so maybe it comes from the 40 down to the mid-30s. Okay. So that's still in KDHE compliance. I will say that people would likely be complaining about pressures if they're at that point. And then, yeah, as far as, so that's kind of the range. And so in the 20 years, I mean, pressures are slowly going to kind of drop as growth happens. And the exact range, we do 5, 10, 15-year increments, but we're just evenly dividing that. All depends on how growth actually occurs.
And that's what I was getting at, is we need to start looking at that for 20 years down the road. This is an expenditure we're going to need to come up with so we can plan and it doesn't sneak up on us and we got to scramble to try to find the money for those. what would cause, sorry, I have a few more. What would cause, you said the 40 PSI pressure that we have on the east side in our low areas. What would cause that to continue to drop? Adding homes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Essentially, as you add more demand, water's moving faster, and that essentially causes what's called energy loss, which is pressure loss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our current tower we have is a 0.75 million gallon tower, correct? The one you're proposing is a 0.2. Would that look similar to that, or is this? This is strictly a aesthetics question. What would that tower look like? Because I know there's different types of towers. Is this?
Yeah, that side we're usually going to do more of a spherical type tower. I'm trying to Sedgwick County too, Rural Water too. They have theirs pretty close off the interstate that you can see. That would
Kind of looks like a big pipe,
yeah,
right? Okay.
That would be comparable to what that would
Okay. And as far as height, with it being on an elevated area at 85th and Seneca, how high would we need that to be to achieve those pressures?
So
basically, we know what it's going to look like. How tall is this thing going to be?
So 60 PSI.
The existing tower is 100 feet tall. So
Okay.
I imagine you go to the south of that would be.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, as Lance said, that's one thing that we can design that accordingly, dictate what the pressure will be. We don't talk about the runway there, we were looking at that. Surprisingly, that was not flagging as an issue. That'll obviously be something that'll.
Yeah.
I think that's all I had for you. Thank you.
I have another question.
Okay.
So back to the water tower, and you mentioned the runway. Does that location have to be there, or can it be further to the northwest, or can it be
No,
to the south?
no, there's some flexibility there. We kind of initially just looked at that, what seemed to be the most ideal initially.
Okay.
But there's definitely flexibility there. It obviously has to be in the east zone somewhere.
Well, that makes sense.
Putting it at the highest point allows you to actually build the tower slower and still lower and still get the same benefit, and saves a little bit of cost on the high end. So,
Robert?
So you mentioned the lower pressures there on the east side. Are they exponentially going to lower at the same rate that our higher pressures do in the city? Or would their exponential be a little bit higher where they would drop quicker? As I'm concerned that we would see them drop quicker.
yeah, I would say that's correct. We would anticipate that mainly because that's where the growth is occurring. So as that growth continues to kind of hook onto those water lines in that area, they're actually going to see more of an effect. In general, too, the farther you are from the tower, from your source of water, you're going to see the effect of that water.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry, real quick. And to just so you take that into consideration, we are aware of this when we were looking at like Saterra and those developments, where some of those, they have multiple stories. Those homes will have boosters that would be in those lines. That would be their own residential booster systems that we've already worked with those homeowners or the developer. And making sure that those landowners are well aware. So, if you look straight out, from the highest point in Saterra, and you're looking at or above the water tower, your pressure isn't going to be there. So, those homes will have boosters in them. Just so you guys are aware, they won't mention that, but just so you're aware.
Ben has a question for you, Brent.
Can you tell me, I know this is kind of offhand, but do you know how many customers we serve in the city? How many households? What I'm getting at is how many people do we serve with Rural Water District 2? With them being 20%, I'm just wondering.
Well, we bill out about 2850 in meters. Now, that's not all residential. Desiree, if you know off the top of your head how many residential? Chrissy? I would probably say right in that just above 2,800.
Is their usage the same per meter basically as what we're supplying to the city? Does that 20% equate to 20% of the customers? That makes sense. What my question is,
Rodney.
Is it pretty even? I did not realize that rural water district 2 serves
Yeah, rural water district 2.
that much of a, okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're more than you realize. That's why, partnerships with them are critical, especially when developing our water treatment plant financially, when it comes to that principal and interest payment. Now, of course, with 20%, the remainder of that, we have very low, usage as it said, 2%, is our largest industrial user in National Plastics, and our residential, equal the rest of that.
I can't speak for exactly what kind of customers would be in rural water. I'm just, as an educated guess, I would say that they're more residential customers. Now, you're going to have some ag customers out there in the rural area that may use a little bit more water. Just as he said, 2% of our usage, that's say we're using 1 million gallons, well, that's still a lot of water. So your average residential customer, I would say it would be commensurate with our residential customers.
Okay. That's all I was getting at is that 20% that they're buying from us equate to about the same as what we're supplying as far as the number that are using it? Okay. That's all I was asking. That was just a big number, and I did not realize that much of our water supply went to rural water. And I realized that those are just mainly homes that are outside the city limits. So.
And, our average, per, residential user is around that 6,000 gallons a month is what a typical household handles.
All right. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, guys. Moving on to the public forum. Is there anybody here that'd like to address the council on anything that's not on the agenda? Okay. Close the public forum then. Moving on to appointments. Appointment to the Valley Center Public Library. I have a list here. It's up there? Okay. We got Amy
Heilman.
Yep.
I move to appoint Amy Heilman to the Valley Center Public Library Board, term ending April 2028.
Second. Have a motion and a second to approve Amy Heilman to the Public Library Board. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to the Planning and Zoning Board appointments. Paul Springer.
I move to approve Paul Springer and Rick Schallenberger for their appointments, both ending in April 2027.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve both Paul Springer and Rick Schallenberger to the Planning Commission, Zoning Board. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. We have at least one of those board members here, I think, tonight, don't we? Oh, okay. Well, then I'll welcome them and thank them for their service now. So, got lots of projects ahead. So, moving on to the new business or the old business. We don't have any. Moving on to new business. Resolution 75024, the overall drainage improvements.
Good evening. I'm Jake Basho with SEH. So this is for Harvest Place. This particular petition and the other petitions are for the improvements for Harvest Place first phase, but also for the overall drainage improvements. So the overall drainage improvements is for grading and the drainage improvements for the entire 130 acre sites. So that is a separate petition, and then we also have phase one improvements that are specific to the phase one. But that is for the paving, water main, sanitary sewer, storm sewer. That phase one.
We approve all these at once, or do we just go one by
I'd
one at a
prefer we
time?
do them individually.
Huh?
Mayor. I'd prefer we do them individually.
Individually?
I don't see
Okay.
bond council here tonight.
No, they do prefer
Yeah.
individually, that's in each motion.
Okay.
Motion to adopt resolution 750-24, authorizing construction and financing overall drainage improvements to the Harvest Place subdivision.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve resolution 750-24. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Resolution 751-24, drainage improvements.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 751-24, authorizing construction and financing drainage improvements to the Harvest Place subdivision.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the resolution 751-24, the drainage improvements, Harvest Place. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to resolution 752-24, the paving improvements.
Move to adopt resolution 752-24, authorizing construction and financing paving improvements to the Harvest Place subdivision.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve resolution 752-24, paving improvements in Harvest Place. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to resolution 753-24, sanitary sewer improvements for Harvest Place.
I move to adopt resolution 753-24, authorizing construction and financing sanitary sewer improvements to the Harvest Place subdivision.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to resolution 754-24, the water improvements for Harvest Place.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 754-24, authorizing construction and financing water improvements to the Harvest Place subdivision.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve resolution 754-24, water improvements. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. I think we're moving on to approve infrastructure agreement with McCullough for Prairie Lakes Phase 4.
All right, so this is the construction contract with McCullough Construction for the Phase 4 Prairie Lakes. At the last meeting, I do have to make a correction based on our bid tab that we got and my misunderstanding of what they actually bid on their bid form. So we had that discussion about roller compacted concrete. My understanding was that their bid was on plain concrete. After seeing their subcontractor list that they provided with their bid, I realized that it was roller compacted concrete is what they did submit as their alternate bid for the paving. They were supposed to indicate that on the bid form. They did not. However, their subcontractor list did. So it was my misunderstanding. That's what I presented last time. So that's the correction I have to make. So we have McCullough's bid and their construction agreement for the alternate bid.
Dale.
On the concrete correction, is there a quality difference? And if there's a quality difference, what's the lifespan?
Between roller compacted concrete.
Well, we thought we were asking for and what we actually got bid out.
Sure. So we did bid both the roller compacted concrete and the plain paving. The contractor was allowed to bid on both.
Mm.
However, on his bid form, he was supposed to indicate so that I knew that it was paving, plain paving or roller compacted. And they didn't indicate that. However, on their subcontractor list is where they indicated that. It wasn't looking for it at that point. So the plain paving versus the roller compacted concrete, that's the
Oh,
difference.
Is there any difference as far as quality or lifespan?
You know, I haven't done a whole lot with roller compacted concrete. It's relatively unique to this area and to a certain contractor in this area. So I don't have a whole lot of experience to roller compacted concrete, to be quite honest with you.
Is that the 93rd Street? Okay. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, no, we will not have any of those here.
Again.
And so a very good example of this is in Park City on their new frontage road. If you've been on that by Atwoods, that's in front of kind of McDonald's as you continue to the south or from the north from 53rd Street. That new frontage road is roller compacted concrete. The same thing by the Hartman. That's now connected by the RV place that's now connected to the Hartman Arena. That's the same as well. I have not been a fan in the past. I have thought that this is not for slower travel. A lot of highways do it just because you can get it, you can lay it quicker. It cures at a much more faster rate per square foot. But this has really changed my mind and opinion. I mean, this is a lot smoother than any that I've ever traveled on in my career. I mean, I don't know what they have done to perfect how they do it, but that's a great road. And I typically do not say that about Park City. No offense. But they did an outstanding job on those frontage roads. I've taken that at 30 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour. Don't worry. And so to test the drivability, because my biggest thing, and I think most citizens, is the drivability factor when it comes to a roadway. We have issues on 4th Street. I mean, I drive 4th Street and I can tell you exactly where every single issue is on that road. And so every road is going to have some of those. But I have confidence with this contractor, more with the subcontractor, that they'll provide a good quality product for Prairie Lakes, better so than potentially previous phases.
So lifespan 20, 25 years?
Yeah, typically you see concrete last 30 years at least. In the end, you're still getting concrete, Portland cement concrete. That's a similar mix to what we
Yeah.
That was kind of you kind of touched on what I was going to ask was, what's that going to do for us as far as maintenance? It's the same difference on maintenance from.
Yeah, it's very similar. As far
I just want to know for us down the road when we're maintaining it, because this is being put in the subdivision and paid for by the specials, correct?
Yep.
I just want to know what it's going to be like when we are maintaining it down the road. Another pun intended. But if there's any difference in it. So I mean, it's not new. It's just not used in our area, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's
And those roads are very nice. I've driven on both of them, so not at Brent speeds, but
say I knew the speed.
yes, I maintain proper speed limits. So
So the way this concrete is typically used is more in industrial use types because it does compact the concrete, which makes it really, really strong. So when you have stronger concrete, it tends to not break off and displace as easily because it can distribute the load lighter. And so you don't see it used in other places because most contractors don't know how to do that type of compacted concrete and still get it smooth enough that it's drivable. So in industrial, it works really well because it's not necessarily required to be smooth.
right. Thank you.
Matt?
I do know they're using roller compacted concrete in Slinick right now. They're doing a lot of their subdivisions, and I've drove those, and they're pretty nice. And an older version of probably done 12 years ago, 15 years ago, is you go out 53rd to Tyler and go right, and there's a fancy subdivision that goes around a pond out there. That's roller compacted concrete, and it's still pretty good, real good shape.
Dale? No, Robert.
Jake, can you speak to the cost savings between regular poured concrete versus the compacted? Is there much of a savings?
There was in the bid. Yeah, what we saw in the bid was, I think the normal PCC payment was roughly over $100,000, which was $100,000 more than the asphalt. So that's kind of your rough scale on a roughly $1 million project. Is that for asphalt is your base, and then you've got roller compacted, that's roughly 100,000 more, and then probably plain PCC at 100 to 150 more.
And base prep is still the same as similar?
Base, yep, same base, 8-inch rock on top of 6-inch prep.
Didn't know with compacting if that base needed to be a little bit thicker for the compacting or not, so.
Nope, we kept it all.
Thank you.
I had one more. Does it, is it drivable sooner than when we do concrete?
Typically, I think it would set up a little bit sooner.
Okay.
Although the project, as far as the pacing of the project, probably wouldn't.
It's not going to change anything for that. Okay.
Motion to approve infrastructure agreement with McCullough for Prairie Lakes Phase 4 in the amount not to exceed $1,277,594.90 and authorize mayor or city administrator to sign.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the infrastructure agreement to McCall for the Prairie Lake Station Phase 4. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, item G, selection of the contractor for the 2024 mowing and debris abatement services.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Bill Andrews, Code Compliance Officer for this great city of Valley Center. I come before you tonight not empty-handed after our extended deadline for our RFP for our abatement mowing and debris removal. We had 2 successful candidates. References were called on both, and references were very positive and said that they would use the individuals again. But city staff does recommend Done Right Lawn Care LLC for our abatement mowing and debris contractor. I stand for any questions.
Dan?
Bill, do we know how many times we've had to use abatement mowing or removal in the past? Like approximately how many do we?
Usually we've done 8 to 10 different properties a year. There's been 2 to 3 properties that we've done about every month during that time period for the last 5 years. One of those dropped off last year, and we're hoping that another one will drop off this year as well. So it'll be just a case by case basis in that.
And these instances, we pay the contractor up front, and then they are billed through the property owners billed through their taxes. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're billed directly.
Oh,
And then if
okay.
that's not paid, then it goes to property.
This is not something that's we're not adding on to the city up front, though. I just want to make sure people understand this is billed to the property owner.
Yes.
We're just the liaison after the steps have been taken with you giving warnings and to take care of their issues, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure everybody understood how that worked and.
Really.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the approval of Done Right Lawn Care's bid and authorize staff to sign contract with selected contractor.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve Done Right Mowing for the abatement, the mowing and debris abatement services. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Bill. Moving on to item H, approval of Foster Design Associates for the contract for 2024 comprehensive plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening in the agenda packet is the draft contract that has been reviewed and is recommended approval by city staff with Foster Design Associates. Through the scoring process of U.S. City Council, Foster Design Associates did score higher than SEH, and so we contacted Foster. They sent us a contract after a couple of revisions. We are recommending approval of the contract with them. Again, they will work in conjunction with you as City Council, the Planning and Zoning Board, and the Steering Committee in working through the rest of this year, through this calendar year 2024, on drafting the new 10-year comprehensive plan.
Any questions? Motion to approve.
Motion to approve contract.
With Foster Design Associates to help the city create a new 10-year comprehensive plan in 2024. The amount should not exceed $28,000 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the Foster Design Associates contract for the comprehensive plan. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign.
I'm for it.
Okay. Motion carried. Needs to be a buzzer down here so I can push it. Okay, moving on to establishment of the 2024 Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee and the appointment of the committee members.
All right, so in the agenda packet, you'll see that we have drafted the proposed members of the comprehensive plan. This takes into consideration multiple boards, official boards, as well as some citizen at large representatives. We were very happy that we got some good participation from residents that would like to have some input in drafting the new comprehensive plan. So we're very excited about that, especially for our citizen at large representatives. Before voting to approve the steering committee and then approve the members that are listed here, the only thing that needs to be done before you this evening is to have a discussion on who is going to be the official city council representative. As shown in the proposed timeline from the contract, the steering committee will be meeting roughly 3 to 4 times. There are a couple of public meetings as well. But again, we do need to add a city council representative to this list before voting. So I'll turn it over to the mayor to entertain who would like to serve as the official representative from council.
Mayor, I'd like to say something real quick. I'd like to abstain from being chosen as a possible member since there is a younger Wilson already on this list.
Okay. All right. You have any volunteers?
Passing the buck.
Oh, nobody's going to speak up, I guess.
Do we need to have a motion for that or just
No, so
approval's good? Okay.
when you vote, we'll consider that Councilmember Colbert's name is under the city council representative section.
Okay.
So then now we need to do a motion, right?
Yeah, so again, there are two,
just
there
a
are two
motion to
motions,
approve
yes.
it, right?
Yeah, there are two
I got a
motions.
question there.
Tina?
Yeah.
Dale.
On the city staff, are all of you going to be joining every time or is just whoever
These
can
are
make
listed,
it?
we are listed as ex officio members of the department heads. That doesn't mean that every single department head will be at every meeting. It's just that they, each of us do contribute different information to the new comprehensive plan. So if staff is available, then they can attend these meetings as well.
Okay, just, I saw that and I'm
Yeah,
like,
so-
that's
so
getting to be a lot of people.
Strictly ex officio in this capacity.
That's on the top.
Okay, thank you. Motion to create a comprehensive plan committee and appoint up to 10 members to serve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to establish the comprehensive planning steering committee and the appointment of the committee members. Any further discussion?
I only did made the
Just the first
first
one.
part.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I guess I ought to read that instead of my notes here. So we're just recommending a comprehensive plan and appointment of the 10 members to serve. Yeah, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify for raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Now a motion to approve aforementioned proposed members.
Second.
Have a motion to approve the information, the form members of the committees. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Thank you for serving, Ron.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
Ron.
Thank you.
I was going to nominate you anyway.
Okay, moving on to item food for fines.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I come to you again this year on behalf of the court to request your approval of our Food for Fines project. We've done this will be our 6th year if it's approved tonight. In the previous 5 years, we've gathered at least 1,800 food items, which translates into about $8,600 worth of fines being paid off. We're requesting the same as the last 5 years, $5 for each non-perishable, $50 limit per person. This is a good benefit to the community, as well as those who are going through the court process. It allows them to help fellow citizens and take care of some fines at the same time. So I'll stand for any questions.
Ron?
Yep, when people pay by cans or food and what else?
Non-perishable items.
How many items are they allowed to bring their maximum?
The maximum would be 10 items. They can bring as many as they want. They're going to get credit for 10 items, $5 per item.
Thank you.
I make a motion of approval for Food for Fines program and set the amount per can/food item of $5 with a maximum amount of 50.
Second. Have a motion and a second to approve the Food for Fines program. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Will that count for Park City if you get caught?
He's on it. He's on his own.
Okay. Okay, moving on to approval of water well repairs, number 10.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So back in December of 2023, Sergeant Drilling was selected to perform a rehab, cleaning, and disinfection of well 10. Consequently, at that same time, staff in conjunction with Vernon McDonald were evaluating all 3 wells, raw water transmission line, and performance of the whole system together. So during that rehab process, it was determined that there were some repairs that needed to be made. Those repairs are on this quote in your packet. That was put on, those repairs were put on hold until recently because of the engineering group that is designing the water treatment plant wanted to verify the pump size was correct to perform with the rest of the system and bringing water to the water treatment plant. So since then, they've worked with Sergeant Drilling. They, in conjunction with staff, have done a great deal of testing on the 3 wells and performance, and so ready to move forward with this repair.
So in your memo, it says we repaired this one back in 2019. Is this an every 5-year thing that we're going to be doing every 5 years? Or is it a flip a coin in 3 years we could have to do it again kind of thing?
Well, so during that evaluation, it was suggested, and we are reevaluating our strategy. I already have one quote on a rehab on well 12 this year. It has been suggested moving forward that raw water line is going to be more critical, that they suggest that we look into changing our strategy of doing a rehab, clean, disinfection of all 3 wells every year.
Okay.
And so we will be looking into that. We will be looking into reaching out, negotiating contract. What I've been discussing with Brent is we'd like to try to set that for a 3-year time frame, renewable every year, so we're not trying changing contractors every year, so they can establish a pattern and they can see some trends when they rehab these wells. But with the consistency of our water and the more pumping that we'll be doing with the plant, they advise us to be cleaning these wells more often. And with that, your chances of reducing repair, that chance of needing repair will go down.
And my next out of curiosity is how much is a new pump?
So in here in the letter, it mentioned the old pump was a different type, higher RPM,
Okay.
and the cost to just rebuild that pump exceeded the price of a brand new.
Okay.
So on that quote, and these pumps, it's kind of deceiving. So there's a pump and then there's a pump motor, and they sell them
And I
in
might
two
have
pieces.
misread everything, so that.
Yes, so they sell them in two pieces. So, you know, you have, they don't have it broke down in here, but when they're replacing both the pump head, housing, and the motor.
Okay. So is this thinking of the budget season, this is something that we're gonna have to start budgeting annually?
Yeah, we're gonna have to reevaluate
Already
that well
this year.
maintenance budget line item in
Okay.
order to accommodate all three wells every year.
And which budget does this come out of?
It'll come out of the water, and it'll be well maintenance line item.
Thank you. Robert?
Rodney, based on this extensive list, this pretty much covers everything in that well housing, doesn't it? I mean, that's an extensive list of
That just covers
replacements.
that's mainly the well head and the certipipe that goes down in the ground. Then you have the well house with all the valving, the controls, which rarely get changed out. Most of this is going to involve your certipipe that goes down into the well. They have a screen that's most of the time made of like rock. Help me on this, I'm not exactly a well expert, but, and your pump will be submerged down that pipe. And so it's mainly out there in the wellhead itself. So you'll have your well housing and your well out here. So most of this stuff is in that wellhead itself.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Motion to approve?
Motion to approve the repair quote from Sergeant Drilling in the amount of $15,690.40 for pump in well number 10 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the water well number 10 repairs. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Moving on to ordinance 1404-24, the annexation request, southeast corner of 77th and West Street.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, once again. I'll tell you my trick later on how I don't get caught. But now, for you is a request that we just received here recently for another annexation into the great city of Valley Center. Here's track 1 and 2. This is located just on the west side of the river. And so Arkansas is right here on the east side that runs along the property. 77th Street. And so if you go, basically, if you're looking at Ford and Meridian and look straight across and draw a straight line, this is where you would hit on the other side of the river. This is West Street. So everything on the east side of West Street. On these two tracks, these two roughly, 39, 38 acres. So I call them, 40s. But and so the landowner has requested to be voluntarily annexed into the city. Now we did receive, and the reason for the waiver. I'll just really zoom in. Let me find mine. The reason for the waiver of the first reading and moving right into the second reading and adoption is we actually already received a preliminary plat on this parcel or on these two parcels. And so the developer really wants to get moving forward with finalizing the plat documents and able to then be placed on the planning and zoning agenda for April for this month to be heard. We do have one of the developers with us in the audience. If you have any questions on that. But the property owner, as you see on that signed letter request, has requested annexation. It is adjacent to and contiguous to our corporate limits. So it is a much simpler process than our most recent one. Dan, for any questions?
Yep.
The plans for this property, do they involve needing water and sewer from the city?
Currently on the preliminary plat, they have requested to explore advanced septic systems as well as wells, drinking wells. Now, of course, is always up for discussion that we will have throughout this course, the course of the project.
But if we annex this property and they decide that they want that, we're on the hook to provide them water and sewer, correct?
Oh, we're on the hook to provide a plan and have a plan in place. If you recall, we actually do have a plan for this area with the most recent island annexation. Actually, 77th Street is that corridor and that path for that proposed utility layout that would provide water and sewer to the west side of the Little Arkansas.
They're, to the best of your knowledge, they're planning on probably building something similar that the housing around there to the north. It's not going to be densely populated. That's going to require city sewer.
That information will be, ironed out during the planning process. And so, of course, following the kind of the guidelines, everything, that goes to the planning commission and then comes before you at a later.
But just because we annex this does not mean that still has to go through the approval of getting platted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are
We don't wanna
ways
speak ahead of them,
and that's what I was getting at. I guess that's the answer I was getting at. This isn't.
Residential, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Dale.
I'm not in favor of waiving the first reading, just with our most recent history of annexation. Just my only comment.
You got any more?
No, I didn't.
Is there any further discussion? I have a motion to approve.
Motion to waive first reading of ordinance 1404-24 and approve annexation of property located southeast of 77th Street and West Street.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
And hold on 1 second there, Mayor. Barry, do you want those in two motions? You want a motion to waive the
Yes,
first
I
reading?
do. Yeah, I like.
Okay.
Okay. If you so choose to amend that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, amended motion to approve first reading of ordinance 1404-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the first reading of the annexation of.
No, sir. No, sir. Stop at the end of the ordinance number.
Ordinance number 24. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a
Bam.
question about that. Do the adjacent landowners, do they get notified? Have they been notified for the approval of this?
They do not get notification on the annexation requests.
Okay.
They get approval or they get notices on
Zoning
the zoning side.
changes?
and plating.
Okay.
So, so for the plating process, folks, and actually the ones that are outside of the city boundary, that is a larger distance, a longer distance, I'm sorry, a longer
Gotcha.
distance outside.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second
To waive the first reading?
waive the first reading.
Yes,
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion still carried.
Motion to approve annexation of property located southeast of 77th Street and West Street.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance 140424 annexation request for southeast corner of 77th and West Street. Any more discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We're on the final pay application for Prairie Lakes Phase 3.
Good evening. So just as a quick summary of phase 3 of Prairie Lakes. So this project was bid about a year ago. Contractor got started, Mikola. Same contractor that was low bid for phase 4. Things went pretty smooth through the utilities, and then kind of once we got to paving and towards the end of the projects, we had some challenges, mainly with the paving, the very surface course, the asphalt paving. Contractor, well, we noticed some issues as they were paving it. They chose not to fix those. They still choose not to fix those. And so we're withholding a good amount in this change order and final payout. Also, some of the challenges were with the timing. There was $15,000 in liquidated damages that the contractor is taking due to not being on schedule with this project. We also had a challenge on the project with this, all the grading that contractors do. We create a 3D surface file that the contractors take, and they follow that surface file. So they noticed as they were grading that some of the surface files that we provided were off. So the contractor had to redo some work, and you see that in the addition there. And so that amount is coming out of our budget of the design services for the next phase 5 and phase 6. So we don't make a lot of mistakes of this magnitude, but we certainly don't ask the city or the developer to pay for it. So that's how that's being handled, and that's kind of what you see in the additions there. So with this project, final payout 145 is kind of what we recommend. Questions?
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the responsibility and doing that. That don't happen very often. I don't know if I've ever seen that happen. It always gets passed off to the city or the developer, like you said.
Oh, absolutely.
And also, you should have paid Brent a little more money. You got up the list, and you could have been gone by now.
Never think to ask that. That's my
Dale?
Can you go back to the, keep going. So you're recommending that we pay the 145.
Yes.
And how much the asphalt deficiencies, how much is that going to cost?
So we held $44,000 out of their contract, out of this payment, to basically re-overlay that stretch, basically Gatewood. There's a little bit on Bridge. Okay, sorry. There's just a few spots, but we recommend the city does that after all the homes and construction in the area is complete. So $44,000 is what we're holding out. That should cover the overall cost of that.
But what's to say that they won't just take that as a loss and not go back and fix it?
We're not saying
they're done.
We're not saying come back and fix it. So that was kind of the discussion we had. Was,
okay.
Do we pay them and tell them they're coming back to fix it? Instead, we're cutting ties and saying you're not getting this money. We're going to fix it. The city.
Okay.
At a later date.
I misunderstood.
I move to approve final payout for the Prairie Lakes Phase 3 in the amount of $145,847.98.
Second. Have a motion and a second to approve the final payout, Prairie Lakes Phase 3. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to staff reports. Ryan?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Neil?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Along the lines of the report that McCown Gordon gave, I just wanted to key in on a little portion of the project that the city's been participating in. Up here, basically to the north of the project, there's enough, if you recall, there was the property there that had all the trees and it was very overgrown. And so Public Works and Parks and Public Buildings have been participating about once a week for the last 7 weeks, going out and spending pretty much the entire day worth of time and going out and working on removing a bunch of the old dead trees, removing a bunch of the old overgrown, over mature trees, and trying to save and salvage the best of the best out there, as well as thin down kind of the herd. So at some point in time, I'd like to probably bring you some pictures back to kind of show you just how much we've taken out of it. We're not professional tree removers, But we've pulled together and we have done a lot of good things out there. Compared to that picture, there was a lot more trees there than it started. We're also just kind of worked to clean it up and make it a little more aesthetically pleasing when you look to the north once that whole facility is done. And that tree row will generally still kind of remain intact to also serve as a windbreak and cut that down. So it'll be a nice little buffer. Don't know how long it's going to stay there, but at some point in time, it may change because that's kind of a blank slate to the north there. But right now, we're just trying to kind of improve that area as well as part of the project. So I wanted to mention that since we're talking updates on the rec and athletics. Stand for your question.
That'll definitely help keep the ripples off that indoor pool from the windbreak. The white caps, yeah, white caps on the pool.
Go ahead. Rodney?
Good evening again. I regret I don't have updated pictures of the Meridians project. Project keeps moving forward. If you've been up and down that street, there's a great deal of concrete pipe, concrete structures that keep digging really big holes and putting a lot of concrete in the ground. Despite it's an older part of the town, and despite all the things we keep finding in the ground that we have to work around. They have storm done on the east side almost to 2nd Street now. Right now they've switched over to working and installing services on the new water line from 2nd to 5th. They're working diligently on that. They hope to have all those services in by the end of the week. There's a large reason for that is when they get up to 2nd Street and they get to putting in storm drain, they want to be able to have that old line in the street shut down and abandoned in case they need to take part of that out to get it out of the way of the storm pipe. And then on mill and overlay, like many other construction projects, it's very, very dependent upon weather. So they had every intent of working the Abilene section. They had a concern of getting it milled one day and then rain coming in and not being able to pave it. So put that off. We've delayed that section. They hope to start milling Hickory and Elm tomorrow and working their way south on those streets and saving Abilene until school's out. As we don't want to compete on getting those kids in those streets. They will be back. It's not going to be a problem coming back to mill because they'll be back to be milling more of Meridian as the summer goes by. So they'll be back to be able to do that on school.
Go ahead, Robert. So Rodney, I've had several citizens ask about the wire that comes up with the blue tube for the water lines. Can you explain what that wire is?
That's tracer wire.
Okay.
So what they do is on the long services, so you'll hear these terms, long services, short services. So the long services is when they have to bore under the street and they have to come clear across the street and tap into the main. It comes under the street and up out of the ground, and then that hooks into the meter can there on that side. Well, if there's ever a break or if there's ever a leak, or if we ever have to repair one of those, that tracer wire, we can go in with our locator and locate that service line or the city portion of that service line.
Very good. And those meters will have the newer style meter that our service people can drive right by, being very proficient on reading water meters and not have to get out of their vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They'll all be new meters.
Excellent.
Rodney, I had 2 questions for you. The storm sewer that's being put in, is that tied in at the end of the project? Meaning any rains that we get, is that being kept out of the storm sewer as it's being constructed? Or is it tied in?
Well, I think.
Do you understand my question? So we're tying into our
May have to
Meridian project.
To gauge, I'm not quite sure on that. Can you help me with that? I know they're starting at the south end and working north.
They construct downstream up. So as they build, it will be active.
Okay, that was a question. If we have a large rain,
Yeah.
what's going to happen to that? I mean, that will help alleviate water from the site anyway. I just wasn't sure how it was being constructed, so.
And you'll likely see some erosion control type logs sitting in front just because of disturbance.
Sure,
water,
sure.
et cetera. So
And then,
acts as a little bit of a barrier temporarily, but it's needed to keep.
right. And the important question is, schedule still on pace to have the Fall Festival Parade on Meridian?
Sure. August.
Great.
I think it was today, we had a Congress meeting.
Thank
So
you very
they're
much.
They're still looking at August 9th. All right.
Any other questions?
No, that was my question. Schedule.
I have one other question that wasn't pertaining to the Meridian project. So during the water master plan, the gentleman's mentioned that water backflows into the water tower. They were
Okay.
talking about the chlorine levels, things along that line.
So
So explain that to me, because I would think that there would be a one-way valve coming out of that, distributing water to homes. We would not have backflow.
This is fun because Ron Ekstrom and the water team has been able to explain this to me and they're very, very good at explaining this. So in essence, the water tower fills and empties in the same pipe. So what happens is that as water comes in to the system, it fills the system up with water, okay, and it pressurizes the water. As more water comes in, it can't go anywhere, but it back pressures back up into the tower, and that's how it feeds. So then as what people use water, it comes back down out of the tower, and then water comes back up from the boost station, pressurizes the system, goes back up to the tower. So it can back pressure back toward the tower as it's used, yes.
Okay. Just thought that was an interesting concept that it would do that, so.
And I'll just expand on that a little. So if you caught Lanston's comment about that's what the model showed regarding the water age, it was high water age on the model.
Yeah.
Historically, on a lot of the water master plans that we do, we get similar results. The check on that is they're required to do chlorine residual tests throughout the system at all times. And Valley Center always has very good chlorine levels. That kind of proves the modeling. Sounds good.
Yeah, and on that, I have been told that they always do a chlorine residual at the output of the tower too, when they go through, and that's always consistently pretty good. So where they're finding the low residuals is clear out at those dead ends. So we go out flush, we bring that new water to those dead ends, and brings that residual back up. Now, we don't have the ability to add chlorine, so we're highly dependent on the city of Wichita, so we have to be dependent on the level that they bring to us at the booster pump. So if that level's low, then by the time it gets all the way through the system, it's very, very, you're crippled from the very beginning, so to speak. So we did have a little bit of trouble with that last year for a little bit of time, but since then it's been coming back up. It's been pretty good, and we haven't had to flush.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Edel? Gage? Barry?
No.
Christie? Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know that we did have our utility billing specialist start yesterday on April Fool's Day, and she did great. So she's put in 2 days and learning a lot, loving it. I think she's really going to be great. And then we've also got the finance director position out on Indeed and getting some applications in. So hopefully we'll get fully staffed here at City Hall.
Thank you. Trent? Oh, I skipped Lloyd. No, I didn't.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, once again. You know, I'm not starting off the year very, very well here when it comes to birthdays on the council, because of course, you know, the one that I missed in between the last meeting and this meeting is, who do you think? Mayor Truman, happy belated birthday. It was their birthday this past Saturday. I hope you had a fantastic day and and a good meal with your family and friends. So happy belated birthday, Mayor.
I gotta scratch that off your evaluation.
Yeah. I was waiting for that. Otherwise, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to governing body. I don't have anything. Ron?
Yeah, unfortunately I do. The legislative program that I was talking about last week, by skipping one very important one. It's SB 542. This is a bill that will provide funds for homeless issues. And if you bear with me, I got four things here that they mentioned, five, I'm sorry, five. This is a new provision which is a significant legal implication for cities. Section 3, all city and county shall adopt an ordinance or resolution respectively prohibiting unauthorized camping, sleeping, obstruction of sidewalks without expectations or conditions other than authorization by temporary permit issued by the city or county. The city or county shall refuse to enforce such ordinance respectively prohibiting unauthorized public camping, sleeping, obstruction of sidewalks. City or county shall not adopt a written policy prohibiting a law enforcement officer who is employed or otherwise under the direction and control of the city or the county from enforcing any ordinance or resolution prohibiting unauthorized public camping, sleeping, and obstruction of sidewalks. Provision of this section shall be not construed to prohibit a city or county from adopting an ordinance or resolution that encourages or offers the traditions of the cities. And that goes on and further. And this is supposed to be heard of this week in the Senate. And the indication so far is it will be approved. That's all I got.
Thank you. Robert?
I have nothing, Mayor.
Ben?
I just appreciate our city administrator's comments being as quick as his drive through Park City.
Dina?
I have nothing.
I have nothing, thank you.
Chris?
I have nothing.
Matt?
I am hoping a couple people from Park City will be at my meeting tomorrow, and I'll let them know about driving. With that, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion to adjourn. Did I get a second?
I hear you second, yep.
All right. All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.